In this video, I'm going to show you 4 ways to loosen up your hips, which might just be the key to beating back pain and managing scoliosis, even if you've been told your pain is coming from things like disc bulges, nerve pinches, arthritis, or a spondylolithesis like me. I'll explain how this works as we go through the exercises. This is a follow-along video with 1 minute of each exercise building on the next so that we can loosen up the hips on the inside and the outside, as well as the front and the back. So grab a yoga mat and let's get to it. All right, the first thing we want to do is loosen the hips on the inside, okay? Because a tight groin can affect the way the back works. So get into an all fours position and pull your knees nice and wide apart like this. All right, this exercise is called a frogger. And what we're going to do is going to tuck the toes in, maybe even have them touching at the back there, and then just go backwards onto your hips or backwards onto your feet. Try and keep your lower back relatively flat here if you can, and get a stretch into your butt while you do it. Now, if you don't feel anything, then just take your knees wider apart. We're just going to rock forwards and backwards for 1 minute. Super simple. All right, these muscles on the inside of your thighs, these groin muscles, can get tight when we sit. They can get tight when we drive. And when they're tight, they actually affect the way the groin moves, which puts too much movement into the lower back. And that's why your lower back can get a little bit chewed up when you have tight hips. So we're just going to go forwards and backwards. And maybe you want to just hold back in a position here and then stretch. That's fine as well. You can just stretch like that. Now, for some of you, you might find this isn't working enough. So you can just pull your knees in towards each other, engage those groin muscles, then relax, and then go a little bit further. So you go in for 5 seconds, pull them together, and then relax and go back down. Okay, once we've done a minute there, we're going to loosen up the outside of the hips. Okay, the way we're going to do this is we're simply going to get in a similar position, so toes touching each other, but this time your knees are a little bit closer together, okay? They're not as wide apart as they were, and you're going to push the outside of your legs into the mat. You're going to rock forwards and backwards again, but this time we're going to emphasize one side for a minute and then emphasize the other side for a minute. So we're going to go towards the right and then back, and you should perhaps feel just a little bit of tension out in the right hip there. Okay, so we'll start with that, just rocking forwards and backwards. These are called rockers. They come from a group who work with primal movement. Now, to make this a little bit more exciting, what we're going to do is we're going to take this foot and just pop it onto the top of the other foot and lift the knee up off the ground here. All right, that's really going to emphasize the lengthening and the strengthening of those glute muscles. Good. Once we've done about 10 of those, I want you to take the leg up and over, and then without touching, go further into that position, constantly pushing the outside of your hip towards the ground. And finally, when you're in this position, I want you to keep that tension on the hip and relax into a stretch. And we're going to hold that stretch for about 30 seconds. Breathe out. Yes. Hold that stretch. Feel it in the outside of the hip. Maybe tuck your pelvis a little bit if you feel like that gives you a bit more connection with the muscle, or even extend. Really get into the outside of that hip. Okay, so that's a minute and a half of work on that side. Now we're going to do the same thing onto the other side. Okay, back to our all fours position, and we're going to rock forwards and backwards just to re-engage our pushing outwards on the knees, pushing outwards on the side of the shin here. And now we're going to shift our hips to the left, and that goes left and back, so 45 degrees, or even straight back and a little bit left, or all the way left and a little bit back. It's up to you, wherever you can feel it the most. If you get a pinch or something in the front of the hip, then just come up a little bit onto your fingertips, or maybe even onto a stool. That will take care of that pinch there. Okay, so you're starting to feel something in this left side. We're going to do a minute and a half's worth of work here as well. All right, take your right foot and just pop it onto the top of your left foot and then lift your right knee up. Okay, so it looks a bit like this. You're here and you're just lifting that right hip up a little bit, lifting it up here, but by taking the knee off the ground. As you drop back into that hip, you'll start to feel those muscles lengthen, and then they're going to contract to bring you back. So you really go far on the lengthen and come back a little bit. Put your hand onto your butt if you want. Open up your chest a little bit. Emphasize that stretch. This is good. Now take your right leg back and across, trying to touch it onto the ground, and keep going with that tension into the hip. Put your hand on here if you want. Open up your chest. If you feel like in that pinch again, just push yourself up a little bit, or even round your back just a touch. Whatever you need to do to engage this muscle and disengage any hip pinch. Okay, once we're in that position, done 10 of those, you're going to drop your knee down, move around till you feel the optimal position for a stretch. And we're just going to hold it there for the remainder of the time. Loosening up the inside and outside of the hips can do wonders for your lower back. And this is a commonly overlooked therapy for lower back pain. Most people focus on the back when it isn't really the back's fault. It's the hip's fault that's asking the back to do too much. Okay, so come out of there. And now we're going to move on to loosening up the front of the hip and the back of the hip, which will loosen up the entire hip in all four directions and take pressure off the lower back. In order to get the front of the hip to open up, we're going to come into a split kneeling position like this. So one leg slightly in front. This leg is the back leg, and we're just going to simply slide that hip forward. You should feel a little stretch into the front of your hip here. For some of you, you might need to hold onto a wall. That's perfectly valid, no problems there. Just simply go forwards and backwards till you're getting a stretch. All right, this is stretching the hip flexors at the front of the hip. And those hip flexors don't just move forwards and backwards. They actually have a role in the side-to-side movement and rotation. So we're going to stretch in all those three directions. All right, so we're going to go forwards and backwards here. Nice little stretch through the hip. Hold it for a second, then come back. Hold it for a second and come back. Not forcing anything, but just allowing the body to open up. Now, one mistake a lot of people make is they end up sort of going down here and they think they're super flexible, but they're not, because there's a straight line between my my ear, shoulder, hip, and knee, right? So I'm not actually stretching my hip. What we want is to be able to bring the pelvis tucked underneath and get the knee to move behind the hip joint with the shoulder still on top of the hip joint. That is a proper anterior hip stretch. Okay, so let's say you move forwards and backwards 10 times. Now you're going to move left and right. So you're simply holding it slightly forward, maybe tucking your butt a little bit and moving left and right. So from the front, it looks a little bit like this. You're going to go forwards and just move left and right like this. It's a good test of balance as well. Really opening up that front of the hip. Last movement here, I want you to imagine your pelvis as a steering wheel, and you're going to drive this knee forward like you're moving the steering wheel like this, and then pull it backwards. And so you're still getting an anterior hip stretch, but you're moving the joint into internal, external rotation, which are very important joint movements for that hip joint. So we're here, driving the hip forwards, and then pulling it back, forwards, back. All the while, I'm trying to hold that hip opening on the front. Okay, we're going to do the same thing the other side. Simply just change, slide forwards, tuck the pelvis a little bit, make sure you're getting a stretch at the front of your hip, slide forwards and backwards. Good. You can do things with your hands as well. Maybe take them up to the ceiling. Some people like to link their hands like you're diving into water and push straight up. That tightens up all the fascia in the front of the body. When you do that, and all the fascia through the side of the body, and it can add to a really nice hip stretch as well. So let's say you've done 10 of those. Now you're going to move left and right. So you're here, hold the hip forwards, move left and then right, left and then right. With the hands, you can actually go left and right as well, in the opposite way to your hip. And that will increase that stretch. It's a really nice, more advanced stretch to do here. Good. So you're moving left and right. Try and do 5 movements inwards, 5 movements outwards. All right. Lastly, we want to get that rotation. So you start by rotating your pelvis like a steering wheel. If you want to enhance that with your hands, you can. Just simply lead the movements with your hands and your shoulders. Maybe you put your hands together, turn them over, go the other way. For some people, this might irritate your back. because where the back has been sore for so long, it doesn't like rotation because the pelvis wasn't doing the rotation that the back should have been doing in the first place. And so when we do it, we think the rotation is the problem, but no, it's the pelvis. So if it hurts your back, keep your shoulders over your hips, rotate, 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 rotating, move the whole thing in one unit. This will not hurt your back. And when you're ready, simply use your hands as the initiator of that movement. All right, so we've done the inside, the outside, the front. Now we're going to do the back. So that is very simply putting one leg forward like this, and then you're going to lean forwards. A group out of the US called the Gray Institute showed me this one. I think it's really nice, and you'll like this as well. What you're going to do is bend your knee just a touch, okay? Weirdly enough, that actually lengthens your hamstrings, but takes tension off the nervous system. Once you're in this position, you're leaning forward, you should feel a stretch on the back of your hamstring. Then you're going to rotate your foot inwards and outwards, inwards and outwards. And we're simply going to do this for about 30 seconds, okay? What this does is it lengthens and contracts at the same time. So we're rotating, which involves the hamstrings contracting, but also lengthening them. So a physiotherapist called Dr. Gary Gray coined the term econcentric. Eccentric is when a muscle lengthens, and concentric is when it shortens. Put them both together, you've got econcentric. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing an econcentric hamstring stretch while taking a little bit of pressure off the nervous system as well. If we want to stretch that nerve a little bit more, the sciatic nerve, we drop the head forward and straighten the leg, and you can repeat it. And you might notice straight away things tighten up in your foot and you feel more of a nerve sensation. Some people enjoy that, and we need to stretch, or at least keep the nerves so they can move and slide easily. So at some point you might want to do that. But if you're suffering from back pain, keep the core strong, up nice and tall, and just bend the knee slightly. Okay, 30 seconds of that. Now we're going to change to the other side. Same position. So we're kneeling, bend the knee a little bit, hinge from the hips like you've got an axis going through your hips like this, bend like that, and then simply go forwards, or side to side, I should say. Side to side, really working hard to keep the tension there. We'll do 30 seconds on this side as well. Ideally, you want to repeat this whole process that we've just done a couple of times. Okay, so going through once, it's going to be great, but going through 3 times will really open up those hips, and you'll reap the benefits of less back pain. You'll reap the benefits of more mobile hips, so that any scoliosis exercises you may be doing are going to work better for your back because your hips are more mobile and they won't be contributing to stiffness or even contributing to the scoliosis itself. Okay, great. We're coming to 30 seconds. We're just going to finish there, and good job. We can call that round 1. And I'd love it if you just press repeat, go back to the beginning, do this again for 3 rounds. If you've enjoyed this video but want to learn exercises like this to beat back pain and manage your scoliosis from the comfort of your own home, then hit the link in the description below, book a call, and let's put a plan together just for you.